Hello and welcome to a new thing I'm going to try and do, this being a review. Today's game that we're reviewing is God of War, just normal God of War. It's technically God of War 4, and I thought since I played it and since God of War Ragnarok is coming very soon, I thought now would be the perfect time to review it. Now, if you'd like to see me talk about my thoughts a bit more in depth, I do that throughout my playthrough, which is, I believe, my second playthrough fully on my YouTube channel. You can go back and see that. It's a great way to review for the actual God of War Ragnarok that's coming out very soon. So, to start us off, I'm not going to do a very long intro like some of these other review channels, because I hate that. So, I want to talk first by talking about the story. The story of this game is one of the best I think I've ever played. Very fun, very interesting. The progression is good. I love the progression of the story, especially if we count in the progression of adding the Blades of Chaos and then Mimir, which we'll talk more about um, in the character section. Um, but I think it progresses very well and you get things very well. It also unravels the mysteries of Norse mythology very well. The pacing, the pacing is really good. I mean, there are some problems with it. For me especially, I really like Mimir in the Blades of Chaos. So sometimes I can get really antsy to get stuff like that, and it makes the pacing a little off to me. But other than that, I can't fault it. And even then, that's really just a personal thing. I'd say the pacing is as good as it's ever gonna be and ever could be. Moving on from that, simplicity. I don't love simplistic games, but I love the simplicity in this. The story of them, Kratos and Atreus, wanting to just simply spread the ashes of their fallen mother and of course wife, um, is really something that is very interesting, and how that all kind of plays in with Balder and all of them coming in, and how even throughout this entire story, their goal is unwavering in the fact that they just want to spread these ashes. And that's cool because it adds some simplicity into this. With something as complicated as Norse mythology, it can be very easy to overcomplicate things. This keeps it perfectly complicated and is very grounding. Because everyone can, everyone who's lost someone can relate to the pain of that loss, and everyone who has done something for a lost family member, or even has just lost a family member, which pretty much everyone has at some point in their lives. Um, so that makes it more relatable, especially when you've got gods and monsters and all that. It can create some very unrelatable situations. But moving on. So to finish off the story section of this, I'm not trying to dawdle as much as I can. I believe the story is fantastic, has perfect progression, I should say. The pacing is very good. The simplicity, along with the intricacy that Balder and all the other people bring, is great. The characters. Kratos is probably the best game character, and I don't think anyone will really be mad at me for saying that. The only other contenders are really like Master Chief, but like, and well, maybe you could count Spider-Man from Spider-Man PS4, but he's more of a comic book character than a game character, so I'm not going to put him on the list. Like Master Chief and Doom Guy are pretty good characters, but I'd say Kratos is the best. He's got that stone coldness of like Doom Guy, but he also has these moments that kind of portray his emotions in that, which is a problem in I don't really want to discuss God of War 3 all that much because I want to focus on this one. But in God of War 3, he seemed much more revenge driven. He was. And it just, that was only, that was like his only cause and goal was revenge. His only thing is the only thing that really defined him as character, which he was still good, but now he's so much better. So I think Kratos overall in his evolution as a character makes him the best gameplay character. In a way that they do this, make him the best gameplay character, that is by bringing Atreus in. Atreus is a fantastic character. When he goes into his little emo fits of rage in like the middle of the game, that gets a little annoying personally, but it doesn't last long. It lasts the perfect amount of time to kind of portray that he's becoming, just that it's, I don't know how to describe this. It's like his personality is shifting with his knowledge of being God. He's getting an ego and all that. And it goes on for the perfect amount of time, I'd say. Even though it can get a little annoying at points. They kind of overdo it a little bit. And the dynamic between Kratos and Mimir, or Kratos and Atreus, is some of the best relationship in a video game that I think I've ever seen, especially familial relationships. It's fantastic. It's kind of like if the Arkham games did more between the Sun part of Batman and the Robin and Nightwing part of it. It's very interesting. Of course, Kratos' goal is to form Atreus into a great person, though that sometimes goes against what Atreus wants. And then, of course, Kratos is still learning from the mistakes that he made in the original 3 games. Moving on to a character I've been waiting to talk about, as you could tell, I've said his name already a few times, Mimir. Mimir is also one of the best gaming characters. I'd say most of the characters in this game are some of the best gaming characters, but with Mimir, it really stands out. I think he's a great way for the story to progress with his knowledge. He's a great character overall, very well voiced. I love all the voice actors in this game, but it stands out. He's comedic in a way that Atreus and Kratos are not, which Kratos isn't very comedic because that's the point of him. But he adds that kind of comedic element to the game, especially when you get him. But he's also serious. It just adds a lot more. His personality just adds a lot more to the game. And I believe that it's better off for it. He's just fun, honestly. Because when you get him, you really start to learn and understand a lot. Like, if you go to Alfheim after the game, or even after you get him, he talks a lot about the lore that you wouldn't get without him. And it's good to have, like, an expert talking about you to this stuff instead of just the journal readings that Atreus does. Which are still good, but there's more to that. Baldur. Now, Baldur, I don't think I'll upset anybody saying this. Baldur is one of the best gaming villains. And now I keep saying that he's part of the best, but really I think everything in this game is top notch. It's my favorite for sure. But Baldur, I really love how he represents the original Kratos, God of War 1 through 3, in a way that I didn't really expect. It took me a few playthroughs to really grasp it, but his want and desire for revenge really mirrors Kratos' want and desire too in the original 3 games. So it creates this nice little representation of how new Kratos would kind of react to old Kratos. So, which works very well, I'd say, especially with Atreus. Because Kratos wants to hide his past from Atreus, but with Baldur in the picture, it's becoming difficult because they're practically the same in a lot of ways. Both the sons of the big god like Odin or I forget the name of Zeus. Zeus, his name. Um, and I think through him, there's a lot of points in the plot that wouldn't have been explored otherwise. And then, of course, going on to Freya, the mother of Balder, which is a fantastic little twist that they put into the game. I don't really know what to say about Freya that I haven't said before. She's I wouldn't say she's one of the greatest characters. That's a little overselling her. But I think she's got a really good story. I really think her motherly kind of relationship, her surrogate motherhood, a little bit of Atreus in the scenes, how she kind of takes the motherly role for Atreus that he wants. I feel like that adds a lot more to her character, and it puts some things with Kratos and Atreus, primarily Atreus, seeing how he reacted with this kind of motherly figure, because, of course, Faye, his mother, is dead. Speaking of Faye, I'd actually like to go on and talk to her a little bit. She's not in the script. But, I think Faye, for being dead at the time, has a very big presence. Well, of course she has a very big presence. If you know the God of War Jotnar collection, there's a pin of her, the owl pin. So, of course, she has a big enough presence to be in that version of it. And it just, for a dead character, especially a dead mother character, it could have been a cliche or not very well developed character. I feel like they did her very well, and you got to really know who she was as a person through the actions and the tellings of stories by Kratos and Atreus, especially when you go to Jotunheim the first time and he's talking about her being a warrior and her whole shtick with the Leviathan axe. Especially interesting the twist with her of her being a giant. That was a very interesting twist, and honestly one that completely changes the game for me. I'd say it's some of the best twisting action that there was. To know that Balder was actually after her and not Kratos. That just was very interesting to me, and it really kind of showed off how cool she was as a character. And this deserves extra props because you don't see her in the game at all. The closest you get is that Alfheim scene where you're stepping into the light, which, might I say, the voice actress who does the Songs of Mother, I believe that's what the track's called, it's the mother singing. That is such a great track, and it's one of the best in the game. It's just so good. That, and of course the just normal God of War, the ba ba ba, the three beeps, as I call it, deep beeps. So moving on, Magni and Modi. These tie with Balder, but I don't hold them to the same standard as Balder. They're lackeys for sure, and you can tell that they don't really have a point other than being just minions. And it would have been cool if they went a little deeper in it. And of course, Modi, because he lives longer, you can kind of tell the way he looks up to his father and just how it goes. It's interesting. For lackeys, they're pretty well developed, but they are just lackeys in the end of the day. There's not much incredibly special about them. Sindri and Brock. They're the brothers that really stand out in this, unlike Magni and Modi. Their separation and their kind of bitching about each other is cool. And how they come together in the end is cool. And having them be at odds with each other allows both of them to develop very well on their own before they come together, and you kind of lose that a little bit. And then you see them grow together. Especially Brock, I'd say. Brock, going into Helheim to help Kratos with his blades in the Winds of Hell. And what? I don't think I can really think of many other characters to say. There were. I like how this game doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of characters, but it doesn't feel like there isn't a whole hell of a lot of characters because you're in a dead world and there's enough characters to kind of where you're being introduced to new characters every now and again. The gameplay, the fighting in this is top notch. I'd say probably just behind either like an Arkham game or the Spider-Man games. Those have a lot more thought, but like the runic attacks really add something to it. It's very interesting. Of course, the axe and the blades of chaos are fantastic weapons. I love the bare hand fights too. Um, the blades are such a cool weapon. I think they're some of the best in gaming. It's not even really close, I'd say. The frostbite, I always call it the frostbite axe. The Leviathan axe adds a kind of heavy way of doing damage, while the blades are more fast, and then the hands are fast, and of course do like parrying. Other part of gameplay, the puzzles. The puzzles are pretty good. There were some that kind of annoyed me a little more than others, but nothing too terrible or stuff that made me annoyed. Unlike God of War 3. The games are very different, God of War 3 and this one. But God of War 3 just had some atrocious puzzles. Some of them seemed long, some of them seemed fetch questy. You know, some of them were just annoying. The one I can think of is the one in the garden where you have to use the staircases to, like, use them as, like, water ramps, and it, like, splashes the water into these buckets that fill up. It's a whole mess, and it's not a good puzzle. I really don't like that puzzle. But in this one, I didn't have to look up how to solve a puzzle. All the puzzles flowed very naturally. And I think they're maybe not the best in all of gaming. I mean, definitely not the best in all of gaming. Portal has the best in all of gaming, I'd say. At least the ones I've played. I love Portal puzzles. I love Portal in general, but that's another review for another time if I decide to do it. Which, comment if you want that. I'd really love to play Portal again. Outside of that, I'm not entirely sure what to talk about. God, my cat. She's getting on top of my collectibles and stuff. I'm replaying LEGO Dimensions, and she's getting on top of all that stuff. In conclusion, I'd say that this is one of the highlights of gaming, especially in the recent years. I'm really excited for God of War Ragnarok, but I'm a little concerned that they overdid themselves with this, and they'll be able to fix it. I am excited to see Thor, and I'm interested to see how they'll handle Thor and Odin, and if we'll get to see Asgard. And then, of course, the fate of Kratos. Which, at the end of this, I'd actually like to share my thoughts on this free roam system. I think what they should do... Okay, sorry, my PlayStation thing decided to go off. The little voice, for some reason. What I think they should do is that they should kill off Kratos, which sounds bad, I know, and he's a great character. And I'd be upset, but I think it's time, and it can really let Atreus grow. But then they should do something, I forget what game does it that I'm thinking of. It puts you before the final mission to free roam. You know, it's so that you can still free roam as Kratos and explore the realms. But then, after this, I would say retire the Blades of Chaos and Kratos, and then move on with Atreus in Egypt, in the Egyptian gods, and have him take the Leviathan axe, and maybe Mimir, if he lives through the game, which I think he should. I think he's a pretty decent part. The game's he's actually a pretty great part. So that Atreus can have his own story and maybe learn some of the lessons his dad had to learn just kind of on his own. That to me is the perfect God of War way to go. Because I really don't think. I mean, I'd be happy if Kratos lived. Be pretty happy with it. I'd love it even. But I feel like to get Atreus going, they kind of need to have him take the spotlight. I also don't think that he should be able to just take out every god ever. Though I am really excited for the Christianity one where he's just beating the hell out of Jesus. That would be funny. That would be funny, and I know they won't ever do that, but that would be funny. Yeah, I think that's what they should do. Kratos dying would make a good thematical choice for his character. He's raised the kid. He's ready, and he's on his own now. Um, Other than that, I really don't have much to say. I do hope they continue the series after. This is the God of War Ragnarok's the end of the Norse series, so I hope they do move on, whether it's Egypt or something else. I do hope that they move on and do more with the characters. You know, no matter who lives or dies, or even if it's just new characters set in the same timeline. Other than that, I think I've said my piece. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next gameplay or whatever, if I decide to do a review, whatever I decide to do again. Alright, and good night, guys.